Hey everyone, how's it going? So, did you know there's Arknights manga? This might come as a surprise as they're not as well known, but there's actually a good chunk of Arknights story to be found in that format. Though most of it is in Chinese, there's a few translations of the different series that seem to hold up pretty well, and thanks to Nat C and Nathander Wise, I was able to read through the Rhine's lab segment so far, and wow, I'm looking forward to going through the other ones because, well, you'll see. Now, if you want to skip straight ahead to the story that we'll be covering today, I'll have a timestamp on screen now. But real quick, in case it was on anyone's mind, this is going to be the placeholder while I am putting off the next chapter of the story. Until further notice, I'm probably going to be sticking with this as my main Arknights content. I mainly want to go back and change how I'd approach the format of the old videos to help fit them around my work schedule and allow for more consistent uploads for you guys. I know I've mentioned that before as well, and I'm sorry that it hasn't happened yet. I'm just trying to convey a better balance of what is happening in the story while actually still being able to express our favorite operators, because I feel as though certain dialogue or actions being taken could be skimmed and essentially kind of glance over what makes some of our favorite characters who they are. So, in retrospect, it did get a little bit long-winded and I put too much effort in trying to keep it as to the dialogue as I could, but that was kind of one of my main intentions behind voicing out the characters and everyone. It just didn't pan out the way I thought it would once the bulk started really dropping on the story. Now, as for the manga segments, I won't get too in-depth with the format since you're about to experience it firsthand, but please let me know how you feel about this in comparison to the other story. I know it's kind of been jumping back and forth and I'm still going to do the lore to sleep to with Silver Ash, but I wanted to kind of have a main staple that was still going to happen with the channel. Anyways, I'll stop rambling and just get started with the story. Today we will be covering Chapter 1 of the Rose Island Records of Originium, Rhine Lab. Spoiler warning as always, but if you did want to check it out, I did drop the link to it in the description, and with that, let's begin. Our story begins in the early hours of the morning, where a handful of workers can be seen loading up trucks with cargo. Amidst the workers, we can see a distraught Ursus woman speaking to someone. Isn't what we're going to do a little bad? How much worse can it get from here? She's lost her father and her mother. If she stays here, assuming hunger doesn't get her first, illness will. I've heard that this ship is different from others. It saves people. Maybe, just maybe, she might be able to survive on board. Okay. It seems like this is the only option we have. We then cut to the trucks making their way up some loading ramps that lead into Rhodes Island. Here they're being directed by a young RI operator when she recognizes a familiar face approaching. As she welcomes them, it's revealed to be Saria and a party of operators returning from a mission. Saria is a silver-haired Weavra woman adorned with 2 sets of horns and a scaled tail bearing a 4-pointed end. She makes an attempt to direct them to their dorms for some rest when Saria remarks to let her squad go on ahead, as she'll be reporting to Cult Seat first. She confirms and begins to lead them to the dormitories when we cut over to a warehouse where the last of the supplies are being received by a pair of RI employees. With the job finished, the two begin to make their way out of the warehouse and close it down. As soon as the lights are cut and the door is closed, an unknown figure makes their way through the darkness with only their Originium covered feet and hooded snow white hair being revealed. We then cut to another sector of RI where we can find Ifrit, a young blonde-haired Sarkaz girl with a strangely metallic luster to her horns and tail, sneaking around. Nobody's here! Oh yes! This is great! Today I can finally... As Ifrit rounds the corner, she runs full force into... Silence! Silence is a brown-haired Liberi woman with owl-like feathers adorning her hair and a calm demeanor behind her glasses. Ifrit, where are you going? Have you finished your assignments? There's so much more work today. No way I can finish it. And I'm starving. I don't have the energy to work on it. I'm just gonna grab a bite and I'll be right back. I'm well aware of what today is. We've spoken about this. You cannot go and see her. Head back to your room right now. I know. Silence then leads Ifrit back to her room before closing the door behind her. After I'm done with my work, I'll bring some of your favorite snacks, so be a good girl, okay? Silence then continues on her way with the 2 other operators. However, as soon as the coast is clear, we can see Ifrit sneaking out of her room and beginning to go down the different hallways, calling out for Saria, trying to find her. As she continues to explore, she finds the same warehouse from earlier when she's distracted by the new supplies that just came in. Oh, are these the new supplies? Are they tasty? Packaging like this is no obstacle for someone great like me. Oh my, what? Why are these boxes bound so tightly? Huh? What's that sound? Why is the packaging on this box torn? Ifrit then pulls the tarp off the box, revealing a small Ursus child eating some of the supplies. This gives both of them quite the shock, and as Ifrit jumps back, the box is knocked over, leaving the small Ursus child on the ground. Before she even has a chance to process what's going on, Ifrit is smacked right in the middle of the face with a water projectile when the child runs off. Damn it! You're not a member of Rhodes Island, are you? You dare to attack me? This is... You can control water? Suddenly, with the snap of her fingers, Ifrit ignites a flame in her hand in response to the water projectiles. Don't get cocky. I'll show you the power of someone great like me. Suddenly, a torrent of water meets a rain of fire as the 2 begin to throw their arts at one another. My flames. Again, watch this. Let's see how you deal with this. Ifrit then begins to charge up an attack before letting it loose towards the young girl, who does manage to shield herself from the attack, but the clashing of arts does manage to leave the small girl with an opening. Haha, you're finished now. Hurry up and bow down to the great... Hey, stop running! Suddenly, the girl slips away past some supplies, so of course Ifrit chases after her. I've got you. Now there's nowhere for you to... But as soon as she rounds the corner, she finds herself underneath a giant ball of water. Huh? You serious? The little girl then closes her fist and brings a cascade of water crashing down on Ifrit. It turns out that this was basically a giant water balloon as a drenched Ifrit finds herself floored on her butt. This causes the little girl to bust out laughing. You little brat. You are actually able to put me out. You're pretty good, aren't you? Again! Ifrit then begins to playfully chase and shortly after catch the little girl, and the 2 are clearly enjoying themselves when suddenly the doors of the warehouse open. 2 RI employees make their way inside, discussing a possible weight discrepancy with the most recent shipment, no doubt referring to the one our unknown couple hid our mysterious stowaway in. Ifrit quickly takes action and covers the young girl's mouth with promises of treats if she keeps quiet before she promptly looks up and gives a silent acknowledgement. Ifrit promptly reveals a piece of candy that she unravels and pops in her mouth, causing the little girl's eyes to light up with excitement. Do you want more? Then you have to listen to me, okay? Ifrit then takes a hold of her hand and the 2 begin to use the various supplies as cover before successfully managing to sneak past the employees who were caught up inspecting all the water they had left behind. After making some distance from the warehouse, Ifrit turns to the girl. Oh right, what's your name? Name? Yep, your name. My name is Ifrit. What's yours? Dahlia. Okay, Dahlia, you have to follow and listen to everything I say from now on. You got that? Also, you have to call me boss. Boss. Ifrit is then overwhelmed by the sheer cuteness of Dahlia when the growling of her stomach interrupts the moment and Dahlia promptly pulls out the potato she was snacking on when Ifrit originally found her. Stop eating that! Your boss will take you to get something delicious! Oh? Ifrit takes hold of Dahlia's hand once more and begins to lead her down the corridor. Meanwhile, at the RI Medical Center, we find Silence speaking with Telosis, a silver-haired Liberi woman with owl-like wings on her head, sharp amber eyes, and a manner of speech that almost sounds like she's speaking in computer directives. The name list of returning operators has been collated. There are no pressing medical concerns. Understood. Oh, right. Saria has returned. During this period, you must monitor Ifrit carefully. Don't allow her to roam freely. We must prevent the 2 of them from meeting. Understood. It's then revealed from some gossip between the 2 other medic operators that Silence was normally a gentle person, but when it came to Saria, things could get pretty tense. Apparently they had some bad blood back when they worked for Rhine Labs, and Silence had to ask Saria to stop making contact with Ifrit, which leaves one of the medics questioning how it even got to this point, as they used to work together. Silence is then shown looking down at Saria's profile when suddenly she's struck with the flashback to a room with Ifrit lying on a table, hooked up to various pieces of medical equipment when Silence turns to Saria. "What are you here to do?" "There is a way to help Ifrit, but you are not to share a word of what happened here with anyone else." Suddenly, a loud beep snaps Silence out of her memory, followed by an announcement that RI's canteens have suffered unknown damage and for all personnel to stand by. Silence then calls for Telosis to call Ifrit's room, already inferring that she was somehow involved. Telosis then remarks there was no response from Ifrit's room. Ifrit. We then cut back to 15 minutes prior, where it seems our water-fire duo has finally found a variety of wonderfully prepared food. "This is heavens. There's Colombian feathered meat rolls here, Ursian red soup, there's even Loneman bacon steak. Oh man, today's head chef must have been Big Brother Matterhorn. Dahlia, take this."
So good.
The two of them begin to chow down on their meals when at some point Ifrit checks to see how Dahlia was liking the food. However, Dahlia suddenly starts breaking out in a sweat and her eyes begin to lose their shimmer. "What's the matter? The steak isn't spicy, is it? What's that sound?" The pipes running across the ceiling then begin to rumble before they rupture and burst with water. The water then begins to whip around the room, striking Ifrit a couple times as it began to envelop Dahlia, who seemed to be laughing to herself softly. "What's going on? Dahlia! This was your doing? Not good. This is too much. Silence will..." Suddenly, Ifrit slips and falls to her hands and knees. She looks up in frustration and begins to create a ball of fire in her hand. "You? Why aren't you listening to your boss? Dahlia, if you keep doing this, when Silence and the others get here, your boss won't be able to protect you either." Suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, the downpour of water comes to a screeching halt as the pipes are suddenly shifted back into place, leaving a confused Ifrit looking around when it's revealed that Saria was actually the one who stepped in to help. "Saria? Ifrit?" This overjoys Ifrit, who begins exclaiming her name, but as she approaches her, "Ifrit!" She then turns to see Silence staring her down with Telosis and two unknown RI employees. "Silence? Silence! It was all my fault. I promised to finish my assignments today." Silence then proceeds to step between Ifrit and Saria before asking her just what she was doing here. "I heard the announcement over the system and I felt an Originium reaction." Before anything else is said, the two interrupted when the RI employees acknowledge Saria's help, thanking her for everything she did, which she promptly dismisses before the situation is interrupted by Dahlia calling Ifrit boss. This grabs everyone's attention, and they all turn her way and begin questioning just who she is and where she came from. Ifrit proceeds to introduce her, and once everything comes to light with the situation, Ifrit questions what's going to happen to her. One of the employees promptly responds that the protocol was to send her back to where she came from, which stirs up an emotional outburst from Ifrit. "No! She's my lackey! I won't let you do anything to her!" "Ifrit, don't cause a scene. Silence! I want her to stay. I like her. We had a lot of fun together. Ifrit, this is..." While the RI employees are trying to reason with Ifrit, Silence moves down to Dahlia's level before examining her. She then takes note of the Originium spreading on her body, but as she passes her hand over a buildup of shards, it sizzles under her fingertips. "This child's a ripathy infection. She needs medical attention at once." One of the RI employees begins to speak against this when Saria interrupts him. "Silence. She can get medical help from a local roads office after leaving the ship, but stowaways must be sent back. Even if she were treated on board, we ought to only make that decision after inspecting her. The ship's safety must be our top priority." "I understand that, but Rhodes Island's medical facilities have their own sets of protocols. With regards to the girl in front of us in need of serious medical attention, we give her all the help we can to our utmost ability." The employee begins to speak back up, stating that he understands where Silence is coming from and respects her medical opinion, but just doesn't see what could stand as an immediate medical concern. Rhodes Island simply doesn't have the ability to save everybody. If we were to simply accept anybody on board for treatment, we would have a serious issue with stowaways on our hand. I'm not trying to find reasons to justify my compassion. This child truly needs... The employees then nod in agreement before apologizing to Silence as they approach Dahlia. Silence yells for them to hold on, but when they attempt to escort Dahlia out, Ifrit snaps, slapping the man's hand away before stepping between the two and bringing forth her fire arts, leaving the employees taken aback before Silence and Saria begin to interject. If you want to take her away, you'll have to get through me first. Ifrit, put out the fire. But I told you that we can't... Unbeknownst to everyone, the current situation was starting to eat at Dahlia, and as Saria begins to approach her, the startled Dahlia notices something all too familiar about the situation when Silence stands between Saria and Ifrit once more. You stay away from her. And the frightened Dahlia looks on at the situation with her psyche breaking as her memories begin to surface, with an almost parallel course of events in relation to what was currently unfolding. In this flashback, it's revealed that Dahlia's mother stood up to her father, which ended up with him killing her in Dahlia's place, right before her very eyes.
Get lost. Stay away!
This tips Dahlia past her breaking point, and with an ear-piercing scream, she summons a torrent of water and begins to attack Saria with it. Ifrit screams for Dahlia, but Silence manages to hold her back. Meanwhile, Saria just manages to block the bulk of the attack when she takes note of one of the employees' hands, basically becoming dehydrated and shriveled down when Saria steps between him and the arts. As she questions what happened to his hand, she realizes just how big of a threat Dahlia could pose to RI and hollers to contain her at once, but Dahlia had already started another wave of attacks. The RI employee then calls out that the water bombs were already behind them, but before they even have a chance to strike them, Saria's arts intercept the attacks by forming a crystal-like barrier. With no stop to the attacks, it seems that Saria was preparing something when Silence suddenly calls out to her. She then takes note of Dahlia's condition when all of the arts begin to falter and the water falls to the ground as Dahlia collapses. Ifrit and Silence then run to her side. Silence, is Dahlia okay? She needs urgent help. I'll get a stretcher. She won't make it. Tell the medical department to prepare an emergency room. Contacting it once. Everyone but Saria and the employee rushes Dahlia over to the emergency room, but as Ifrit leaves, she hesitates and turns around, seemingly waiting for Saria's acknowledgement, and after a quick nod, Ifrit keeps her gaze locked on Saria's for a second longer before departing for the medical center. Saria then turns to the RI employee to check on the condition of his hand. It seems to be completely back to normal thanks to her quick thinking, but I wish to clarify a few things with you. Meanwhile, Silence and Telosis are making their way to the emergency room with Dahlia in hand. Prepare to carry out an emergency operation. Emergency room ready. Give her oxygen. We have the access to the veins. Prepare the injection. Suddenly, as Silence is masking up, a loud ring brings about another flashback with parallels to the current situation. A memory plays out where, over the intercom, it's being announced to prepare the emergency room, and as Silence makes her way to the situation, it's revealed to be Saria carrying Ifrit in a presumably critical condition. And that's where the chapter ends. Well, goddamn, what an introduction to start off the manga. I could be mistaken on the order of this, but I do believe this is the first canon manga for Arknights that we got, and so far, I'm really enjoying the read. Now, I did want to mention that I'm probably going to be sticking with this just because this feels so much more feasible to accomplish on a weekly basis. I know before that we really wanted to get the story covered and go through with everything up until the most current chapter, but if I'm being honest, it is just so much to cover, and the way I want to cover it just makes it very long-winded, so I'm still working on my approach to that, but for the moment, this should be here to stay alongside the Arknights lore to sleep to, and then maybe in the future, who knows when, I'll get back to the actual main story. But as for now, I appreciate everyone for checking out the video, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.